Oliver Bearman, what a weekend! What an incredible debut! Sorry about Carlos, a big hug, hope to see you soon on the car. But guys, in a Formula 1 where nowadays we're only talking about what happens outside the track, because on track everything is boring as hell. Guys, how cool it is to be amazed by a P7. This is what racing is all about. Throwing an 18 years old in the lion's cage behind the wheel of a Ferrari in the most dangerous and grueling track of the calendar. He did great, he didn't crash the car, he left everybody speechless. Wow. Here we are with the PostGP, the video where we're talking about the most interesting things that happened during the weekend. If you like these videos, please subscribe, because I will post one video after every race and you will see also my race video. As you can see, I'm not recording in my studio because I'm at Mugello circuit. Today I was testing with my race car. You will see everything soon on this channel. Let's start immediately with the recap, the Naska summary. The weekend in Jeddah begins as the weekend in Bahrain has ended. All we're talking about is what's going on inside Red Bull. And I will try to give you a super fast summary about what happened. After Bahrain, Jos Verstappen says Horner has to go. But Horner, who's been cleared of the harassment charges, goes on counter-attack. He ends up attacking Helmut Marko, who is being accused of talking too much to the media. And somebody even speculated that Marko was behind the screenshots leaks. And in all of this, the employee, who was the supposed victim of Horner harassments, has been suspended. On qualifying night, it even looks that Helmut Marko is going to leave Red Bull. Verstappen gets pissed in the press conference, but for real, and he makes clear that without Marko, he's going to leave Red Bull. Destination Mercedes. Magically, we get to Saturday, the race morning, and Marko announces that he will remain in Red Bull and the calm returns. Did you understand anything? No, me neither. We're collecting all the information, we're going to make a dedicated video about the Horner case. Let's move on track, because we want to talk about Formula 1. The whole racing weekend will be anticipated by one day because of the Ramadan, and on Thursday, in free practices, Red Bull makes clear who is going to dominate the weekend. Carlos Sainz arrives at the track with a fever, but besides this, he drives. During the night, he gets worse, he's brought to the hospital, they found he has appendicitis and he had to be operated immediately. Sainz's replacement is going to be Oliver Bearman, Ferrari third driver and the star of the Ferrari Driver Academy, and Prema driver in Formula 2, where, by the way, he took pole position. So, he's going to give up a pole position in Formula 2 to race in Ferrari Formula 1. He goes straight in FP3, then qualifying, then race. He almost gets to Q3. He loses Q3 by 36 thousandths of a second from Lewis Hamilton. He finishes P7. That's incredible. Whatever, in qualifying, Verstappen makes the pole position, Leclerc P2, 3 tenths from Verstappen, then Perez, Alonso, McLaren, the struggling Mercedes, Tsunoda and Stroll, very bad for Alpine and Sauber, with Guan Yu Zhou in the wall during FP3, and the mechanics unable to get him back in time for qualifying. Then we get to the race, and there's nothing to say. It's just boring. Verstappen dominates and wins. Perez follows in P2, Leclerc in P3. Then we find Piastri, Alonso, Russell, an incredible Bearman, Norris, Hamilton and Hülkenberg, and then everyone else. Now let's get straight to the top 3 and flop 3 of the weekend, starting by the super mega top of the weekend, Oliver Bearman. He deserves it so much, and what he did was so special that I don't want to take him as a top 3. We will analyze his performance in the too hot to handle part of this video. The other top 3 of the weekends are: the first one, Max Verstappen. Guys, what I'm going to tell you is just insane. At 2 a.m. in the night between Friday and Saturday, so between qualifying and race, that was the Italian time, because in Arabia it was 4 a.m. If you logged online on iRacing, the driving simulator, you would have seen Max Verstappen driving from the hotel. Do you understand that this guy, who's going to start in Formula 1 in pole position, was driving the simulator the night before? It looks like everything is so easy for him. He doesn't even have to sleep. And then, perfect qualifying, dominating race. I really have no words. Second top of the weekend, Fernando Alonso. Fernando has a great qualifying, and then in the race, he didn't get lost like in Bahrain, but he did a great job. He defended from Mercedes, he didn't finish too far behind from McLaren, especially good thing for Aston Martin, because can you imagine Aston Martin without Fernando Alonso? The third top 3 of the weekend was the Haas, for the second time in a row. How good of them! I mean, in the test everybody was thinking that they were going to be last, and now look at this. They they scored 1 point. And the way they did was an incredible and brilliant strategy. I don't know if you saw it, but during the safety car, Hülkenberg decided to stay on track in order to gain some positions. But during the pit stops, he would have lost all the positions. Unless Kevin Magnussen would have done something magical. Listen to this, Magnussen has 20-second penalty for an incident, and he was in P11. So what did he do? He decided to put the elbows like this and keep everybody behind, closing every possible door. He made lose time to all the other cars, and when Hülkenberg did the pit stop and came back on track, he was ahead of Magnussen in P10. And so, with this brilliant strategy, they scored 1 point. Wow. Now, let's talk about the flop 3. If Aston Martin has a top driver, he also had a flop driver, Lance Stroll. I mean, in Bahrain, we saw an incredible Stroll, being hit, spinning, restarting last, recovering until P10. Now, in Jeddah, totally different driver. That's too erratic. In qualifying P10, far from Alonso. And in the interviews, he doesn't even seem to care. In the race, he makes the same mistakes as the free practice, he ends up in the wall. Second flop of the weekend, Daniel Ricciardo. Daniel, do you really want the Perez place in Red Bull? I mean, that's not the way to get it. Tsunoda made it to Q3, he didn't do it. P14. In the race, he was so slow, only Bottas was lower than him. He's just unrecognizable. The third flop of the weekend was the Sauber. In free practice, Guan Yu Zhou crashes the car in a way that I've seen the replay like 10 times and I couldn't understand how. In the race, neither Zhou nor Bottas had rhythm, and in fact they finished far behind. Even Bottas was the only one to make 2 pit stops, and Zhou suffered the same wheel nut problem that Bottas suffered in Bahrain. Wow. Audi just bought 100% of Sauber and it's not promising. Now, let's go to the Naska tech. Let's start the technical section by talking about Mercedes, which, surprise, did not solve porpoising. Yes, after 3 years, it's still there. Hamilton complained after qualifying, pointing out that it has been now 3 years that these ground effect cars are racing in Jeddah, and for 3 years, Mercedes has got the same problem. This car, the W15, is disappointing by now. Even Russell, who looks like he understood it better, is struggling. I don't know if you know it, but they fitted a really unloaded rear wing in qualifying, and the car was so undrivable that they had to abort the lap even with the new tire. In the race, Russell got stuck behind Alonso. Lewis tried the strategy to stay out during the safety car in order to use the soft in the final stint, but nope, he wasn't even able to catch Bearman, who was on used hards. But anyway, we're talking about Mercedes rear wing. Here it is. Look at this. Look at how fascinating it is. Look at all the super researched micro aerodynamics details, which are really stunning. But if you have porpoising, they become useless. Speaking of rear wing, I also want to talk about the McLaren and the incredible drag that they have. I don't know if you know what drag is. Drag is the resistance that the car has as passing through the air. The aerodynamics of Formula 1 car are designed to create downforce and make the car stick to the ground, and to make less drag as possible, because the drag actually breaks the car and prevents it from going fast. Well, the McLaren, even with the DRS open, had so much drag that they were capable of gaining just 9-10 km an hour. That meant McLaren, with the DRS open, were unable to pass any other car on the straight. Wow. Now let's go to the too hot to handle, and this is the right week to talk about Ferrari, and especially Ollie Bearman. There are so many things to say, so I'll be quick and synthetic. Did it go well? Yes. Because in Jeddah, Ferrari, exactly like in Bahrain, they confirmed that they are the second force on the grid. And with this Red Bull, which is that fast, especially with Verstappen, it's a great result. Especially considering that Ferrari now is a bit better than McLaren, Mercedes, and Aston Martin. How good? I would say quite a bit. Now, some of my Italian followers in the Italian version of this video on my Italian channel after the Bahrain Grand Prix, they pointed out that they think that it's useless to compare these races to the beginning of 2023 season. Instead, it would be much better to compare the first races of 2024 with the last races of 2023. In my honest opinion, it doesn't make sense. Because what we saw in the end of the 2023 season didn't make sense at all. Because Red Bull stopped developing the car in July. So in Abu Dhabi, we've seen an old car, while Ferrari brought the last update in Suzuka. So the difference in the up-to-dateness, is this something that you say in English? Whatever. They were too much different, those cars. Instead, if we compare the start of 2024 to the start of 2023, the situation was the same. Red Bull just brought a new super performing car, and also we are comparing the same tracks. Now, what does the comparison tells us? If we compare Jeddah 2024 with Jeddah 2023, the races were quite similar. Safety car in lap 18 in 2023, safety car in lap 7 in 2024. And what was the final result? Last year, the first Ferrari finished P6 with 36 seconds from the Red Bull, while nowadays they finished in P3 with 18 seconds from the Red Bull. Exactly like I said in the last video, Ferrari reduced to half the gap from Red Bull, and that's a good result. How much does the Leclerc fastest lap on the race count? It doesn't count that much to me, because Leclerc has managed the pace for half of the race. In the final lap, he tried to make the fastest lap. He also got a DRS by Ricciardo, but he lost time in some sections. Is Red Bull still far ahead? Yes. I'm sorry to say it for Ferrari's fans, but it seems impossible that Ferrari could compete for the world title. Maybe the constructor world title, if Perez will drop in mid-season. But anyway, with the updates, Ferrari might try to win some races. What problems does the Ferrari's car still have? There seems to be some nervousness at the rear, and I just want to show you some telemetry from the qualifying. Okay guys, wait a second. I recorded the video yesterday, so today I'm here testing my car, but I wasn't 100% sure about what I said. So I watched the telemetry with some other engineers that work in Formula 1, and they made me notice one thing. Look at the very end of the chart. Can you see that the Verstappen line finishes before Leclerc's line? One other suspicious thing is this. Look at all the minimum speeds of Leclerc. They are all a few meters later than the Verstappen ones, and they are too much for a Formula 1 car. So they told me that maybe this chart was not plotted properly, but instead there was probably an error, which is that Leclerc's graph was shifted forward. What does that mean? It means that if we see Leclerc braking later, it doesn't mean that he broke later. It just means that this graph is not aligned with the Verstappen one. So I will put you now the analysis that I did, and if the graph is correct, the analysis is correct. If the graph is wrong, what I'm going to say is all wrong. The only thing that remains the same is the difference in the aerodynamic loads that we see after the last corner. So that's it. This is a comparison between Leclerc, Alonso and Verstappen. If you don't know how to read the telemetry, I just want to show you the delta. The reference is Verstappen, so we don't see Verstappen. Verstappen is the straight line, and the red line is the delta, which is the gap meter by meter that Leclerc has from Verstappen. If the line goes up, it means Leclerc is losing time. If it goes down, it means he's gaining time. What I want to show you is that in every braking, Leclerc is gaining time. Every time you see something like that, that's a false gain. Why? Because after that, he starts to lose, and at the end of the following straight, the time he lost was more than the time he gained on the braking. If you brake too hard and brake too late, you are gaining time. Do you agree with me? Because you're braking later. But all the time gets lost because if you brake too late, you're not able to exit as fast as you would. And so during the following straight, you would lose all the time that you gained, and even more. That's exactly what's happening. Maybe the car is not allowing the driver to exit as fast as he would like to. Maybe they're struggling with the rear, with the traction. I mean, Formula 1 cars are so different from each other that there are so many things that may happen. But one thing that some people may point out is, okay, if Leclerc is losing time constantly on the straight, isn't it because the Leclerc car is just slower than Red Bull? Maybe they have a more loaded aerodynamics, more drag, or less engine. Well, I think that the delta going up on the straight is a sum of the tendency of Leclerc to brake later and not being able, maybe because of the setup or the car, to exit as fast as Verstappen, and also that the Ferrari was a bit slower on the straight, maybe because it was too much loaded. We can see clearly from the final corner. As you can see, Leclerc brakes much later, he gains, and then in the exit, he's able to keep what he gained, because the delta is lower than it was. Then he keeps gaining a little bit, but at some point, the delta stops gaining and starts to losing again, when he is flat on the straight. That probably means that on the straight, the Ferrari was just a bit slower than the Red Bull. So the question you may ask now is, why did the Ferrari chose a more loaded rear wing? This is something that we can deduct if we listen to the interview, we look at the wings, we look at the data. I will reassume this, that probably they had a too nervous rear, so in order to have a more stable car in corners and in order to wear the tires less, they chose a more loaded rear wing. More stability, less wear, but lower speed on the straight. When will the first updates come? We don't know. There are rumors that say that already around Suzuka, which will be in spring this year, they will have updates. After that, maybe between Miami and Imola, they will have new side pods. Now, let's talk about Bearman. I mean, what can I say? Already last year in one Italian video, I said that Bearman was really fast, but I could never imagine him to be that fast. Now, I just want to point out that this is not football. It's not that you are talented and you find yourself playing in a world final, you score 3 goals and the team wins. Driving a Formula 1 car for the first time, it's not like playing football. It's so complicated, it's so hard. Especially in a track like Jeddah, so fast, so dangerous. If you make a mistake when playing soccer, I mean, okay, you shoot the ball out. If you make a mistake with a Formula 1 car, you make 1 million euros damage and risk your life. Bearman has been put on the car in FP3 and he was immediately fast. He almost qualified in Q3, 36 thousandths from Hamilton. In the race he puts Hamilton behind and Norris as well. He doesn't crash, he starts well, he fights, he holds on for a whole race. Boy, that was so good, but really good. I can't wait to see him in Haas next year because he really deserves it. And because of the race in Formula 1, he had to miss the Formula 2 race where he was supposed to start in pole position. And I honestly think this is a stupid rule, that if you race in Formula 2, you can't race in Formula 1 and vice versa. It doesn't make sense. I'm racing 2 classes, 3 classes per weekend. Why not? I'm doing it. But anyway, Ollie Bearman today convinced everyone that he's going to be a good Formula 1 driver. He just deserves a seat. Now, let's go with the Naska votes. Magnussen, 7, Lion. Hülkenberg, 8.7, Hammer. Ju, 5.5, crashed. Bottas, 5, nowhere to be found. Ricciardo, 5, struggling. Tsunoda, 6.5, okay qualifying. Sargent, 5.5, intangible. Albon, 6, a few flashes. Ocon, 7, he tried. Gasly, 6, inaudible. Stroll, 4.5, patchy. Alonso, 8.5, concrete. Piastri, 8, inaccurate. Norris, 7, screwed. Hamilton, 6.5, also screwed. Russell, 7, bouncing. Bearman, 10 and praise, spectacular. Leclerc, 9, goes the extra mile. Perez, 8.5, convincing. Verstappen, 10, as usual. To the next Grand Prix and beyond. Next Grand Prix is going to be Australia, the usual opening of the past seasons. And if you are from Europe, you're probably going to sleep after the second lap and it's going to be boring. But anyway, now the real question is going to be, how will Bearman go in Formula 2? And what about Kimi Antonelli? We will see.